You are about to enter the no superstition zone of rational thinking and intellectual curiosity here on the Atheist Forum. Standing by for your questions or comments at 727-441-3000, where you can talk to a real live atheist here on Tan Talk 1340. Ed Golly, along with Joe Reinhardt and Tracy Thomas in the Tan Talk studio, along with tonight's guest, whom we'll introduce in just a moment. But first, Joe, our question of the week: how is Melania Trump coming along with her campaign to eliminate cyberbullying?
There is nothing to report on that topic.
Seems almost improbable. You know, I don't know if it's fake news or an urban legend, but it's my understanding. I think I saw somewhere on the internet that she's abandoned cyberbullying and now is immersing herself into the cause of eliminating the source of the scourge, rather, of love child births in America. Have you heard anything about that?
I think that might be fake news, but I wouldn't swear to it.
Okay, fine.
I wouldn't bet your life on it.
Well,
Define
this is the
love child for
Atheist Forum. It's the voice of atheism in Florida here on the Tan Talk Network, and your opportunity to insult an atheist. Our website, talk.aof.ngo. And on April 11th, Leon County Circuit Judge Karen Givers ruled that Tampa Bay icon Joe Redner can grow his own marijuana for medical purposes. Now, lawyers claim this could lead to a tsunami of similar cases, while the Florida Department of Health responded quickly by filing an appeal. Well, in the Tan Talk studio with us tonight to tell us the details of this issue is Joe Redner himself. Your chance to insult Mr. Redner or an atheist happens right now. If you call in at 441-3000, that's 727-441-3000. A quote from the article here that we saw in the paper about it, which is that the Department of Health filed the appeal on this, saying that Floridians are barred under state rules from growing cannabis for their personal use, including those who are legally registered as medical marijuana patients. But Joe and other critics across the state say the health department continues to create barriers for nearly 100,000 registered patients in Florida who could benefit from marijuana. Joe's a stage 4 lung cancer survivor and a registered medical marijuana patient. Now, I'm going to quote from Judge Givers in her ruling, quote, "Under Florida law, Plaintiff Redner is entitled to possess, grow, and use marijuana for juicing solely for the purpose of his emulsifying the biomass he needs for the juicing protocol recommended by his physician." The word solely is bolded and underlined for emphasis in the report. Joe, bring us up to speed on this. What's really going on here? What happened?
Well, we had a hi everybody. We had a the first thing I smoke marijuana anyway. I also know the medical benefits of marijuana. I mean, I can read. And it's everywhere. It's on the internet. There's kids, they're feeding it to a kid that's having a seizure and has hundreds of seizures every day, and the things go away. If you can't see that and know the medical benefit of marijuana, there's something wrong with you.
Well, it's been known for like a century, hasn't it?
And I guarantee the Republicans in the legislature in Tallahassee, there is something wrong with them. Keeping medicine from children.
Well, yeah, but they're getting money from the drug companies who don't want people using them. Am I right on that one, Joe?
You're absolutely right. They're not only the drug companies, but the pulp companies. They're every special interest that makes money from a product that would compete with medical marijuana or marijuana, period, is pouring money into the legislature to defeat you getting your friggin' medicine.
I hear that in states where they have legalized marijuana use for everybody, that the actual amount of opioid overdoses has plummeted.
25%.
That's huge.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. I used marijuana to get, I smoked cigarettes. I did cocaine. I was an addict. I drank like a fish.
Now, there's a man after my heart.
I'm talking about 30 years ago, 35 years ago. Every time I decided I wanted to quit over and over and over again, but the last time I said, this time, every time I have a craving for anything, I'm going to smoke a joint. That's what I'm going to do. And you know what? I quit everything, and then after about a year, I quit marijuana.
Huh.
So, I mean, it was not a problem. Marijuana wasn't a problem to quit. It's not addicting.
Nicotine's the hardest.
Nicotine, right. And all the rest of it. And I used it. It is an exit drug, not a gateway drug. We know what the gateway drug is. Alcohol. That's the gateway drug. Wow. And so, anyway, then the judge, they filed a motion to dismiss. We filed our answer. The judge ruled for us. She wouldn't give them their motion to dismiss. She wouldn't grant it. Then we set up a trial. She expedited the trial because she knew it was an emergency. We had a trial. We did that real quick. We won.
Was it a bench trial?
Yep.
Meaning no jury involved.
No jury. We won. It was all a matter of law. There was no facts to be
Wow.
It's all a matter of law. And they gave me, I forgot where I was. So anyway, she ruled for me. Then there's a stay that goes into effect automatically. This stay goes in automatically. It's a state statute that it goes in, and that stayed her ruling. So then we applied to her on a motion for her to lift the stay, which we had a hearing, and which she did. She lifted the stay. They ran to the appellate court and asked for a stay in the appellate court. That was Thursday. Friday they didn't get a stay, and I'm growing through the weekend. I'm growing, and you can tell everybody in the state, I'm growing marijuana.
Did they have any limitations on how many plants or how many acres or the manner in which you could grow it?
Yep, we had to show the judge how much we needed, because they have we'll talk about the amendment in a minute, but the amendment tells them that they have to set an amount. It's not a final amount. Your doctor can deal with them and get it raised or lowered, but they have to set an amount. They didn't. That's one of the things that the judge chastised them for and called them down for not setting an amount like they're supposed to, called for in the Constitution. The amount that we came up with is 30 plants, and the reason for the 30 plants is it seems like a lot, but it's not like an apple tree or an orange tree. If you pick a plant, a marijuana plant, it dies. So you've picked it all. You can't. So you got to have marijuana plants in various stages of maturity in order to always have your 8 ounces of blended marijuana. Is what I'm going to do. I'm going to blend it. I'm not going to juice it. I'm not going to take anything out of it. I'm going to blend it up, put water in it, and I'm going to drink 8 ounces a day. What this does to your body is phenomenal. It is unbelievable. You have cannabinoid receptors in your body that developed through evolution through years and years and years. And animals have it too, of use that your body has developed in order to put it into the best effect it can. And it is unbelievable what marijuana does. It soothes babies when they're having seizures. COPD, it helps that. It expands your lungs. I know they say smoking might give you cancer. It actually expands your lungs. It's just...
I mean, we all know, we've heard of glaucoma.
Yeah, it helps that.
I've heard of crazy things like even diabetes.
Yeah. So now let me tell you about the... Go ahead.
Well, what do you find to be the main differences in the effects between smoking it or vaporizing it and,
I vape it, actually.
And drinking it?
I vape it and I take oil. So there's a difference in the high, the oil. You want a full entourage, so it's a little bit from vaping. It's a little bit different, and I don't even like calling it a high because it's really not. What it does is change your mood. It actually makes your mood better. You know, it doesn't hurt you. Pot doesn't make you aggressive. Alcohol makes a person aggressive.
I was just going to talk to you about
that. Pot does not. It calms you. It actually calms you. And I used marijuana when I was in the stage 4 getting chemo and radiation. I used marijuana because I don't know if people understand what chemo does, an aggressive chemo does to you, but it's just devastating. I mean, you don't feel like you can be in your body. You want to come out of your body. That's how bad it is.
Wow.
And the marijuana's just, I cooked my own. I bought it on the black market. I boiled it in butter. It transferred to the butter, and I would when I just got finished with the chemo, I would go home and I would take the oil and I would be able to relax. And then, you know, each day the chemo effect is a little less. So then for a while I was okay, and then go back for more chemo and then more marijuana because I couldn't stand it. I don't know if I could have gone through it without marijuana.
Wow.
So anyway, here's what we have. We have an amendment. I wish I'd have brought it. We have an amendment that 71%, over 71% of the people of Florida voted for. The amendment says that a person in conformity with the amendment using medical marijuana is immune from prosecution or anything else the state can do against them. The definition of the use of medical marijuana is to possess, transfer, administer yourself. There's about 5 or 6 different words. Use and administer are 2 of them. Okay. And possess. So I am allowed to possess medical marijuana to administer to myself according to the amendment. Medical marijuana is defined by the amendment as a amongst other things, I'm going to give you what's useful to me, is a plant growing or not and the seeds thereof. So I am allowed to possess medical marijuana and administer it to myself, and the definition of it is a plant growing or not. How in the hell are they going to keep? Oh, and you have to know, this is the Constitution. They can write any friggin' law they want. They can write policy. They can come and arrest me. They can take me to jail. I'll walk out of the courtroom free. They can't do a damn thing to me. I don't care what they do in Tallahassee.
We'll get you out if it takes 40 years, Joe.
Well,
that's the same thing I did when it was a new dance and it was freedom of speech, except with the First Amendment, it says freedom of religion, but it doesn't define it. It says freedom of speech, but it doesn't define it. Freedom of speech can be nude dancing. It's anything that the Supreme Court says it is, but not this amendment. The people that wrote this amendment made it specific. There's no interpreting it. The judges have to apply it. That's the rule. They apply what it says, and they're doing everything they can to get out of it, and people are suffering for it, and it's inconscionable. It just friggin', to me, is unbelievable.
I look at it like the same-sex marriage issue. I kept trying to find somebody who could explain why this was going to be detrimental to our society, letting people get married. And so finally one day I hear that, Ralph Reed, who was the poster child for the religious right movement, the conservatives, was going to come on and explain it. So I tuned in for that. I'm pretty sure it was him. Asked the question, what's the problem with same-sex marriage? He says, well, I just don't like it. It's just my personal bias, but nobody could ever explain how this is going to harm the people that live next door to those who are able to marry the people that they choose instead of who the government's. And isn't this pretty much the same thing?
What was I going to say?
It's interesting that you brought up alcohol a few minutes ago because, when I was younger, I did partake quite a bit of alcohol and marijuana. I know from personal experience that marijuana, as you said, is very soothing.
Yep.
I don't have any statistics, but I have also observed many people on alcohol versus on marijuana. And I know that there are a lot of instances where people end up in the emergency room for alcohol related and also in jail for alcohol-related incidences, dead. But you don't really hear too much about that with marijuana. People they don't get aggressive. It's just not that kind of thing.
That's right. That's a fact.
You don't overdose.
That's a fact because know if it wasn't a fact, they'd be promoting it like crazy. There was a study on TV the other day on the news that said something about that accidents involved with marijuana in Colorado, there was 51 more fatal accidents. What they didn't, that's the only figure they've come up with against marijuana in 10 years in Colorado. They didn't take into account that there was more people using marijuana. Actually, if they had stayed, accidents would have had stayed the same. That would have proved marijuana helps your driving, not hurts it.
Yeah, you got a point. We have our Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, on a national level, is doing everything he can to reverse what Obama had done, which was essentially say, I'm not going to interfere with states with what they're doing as far as legalization of marijuana. Even the District of Columbia has legalized marijuana. But Jeff Sessions, I think, is doing everything he can to roll that back. Yeah. And I think it's just the most foolish thing he could do.
He's a foolish person.
He is indeed.
Yeah, he's a little weasel.
Well, he has an agenda, too.
Yeah, he does.
Which yeah.
But...
Well, anyway, so where do we stand with this now? Where do we go forward from here?
Well,
I mean, not with respect to you, but with these thousands of other people who need this.
We're going to get a ruling out of the appellate court that's going to allow people to grow their own marijuana.
So if the appellate court rules in your favor and rejects the health department,
right,
then they can use it.
People will be able to grow their own.
The whole thing that this really is all about, and marijuana is in a sense is a gateway drug because it opens the door to legalizing all drugs and treating them as a medical problem instead of a criminal problem. When you treat drugs as a criminal problem, you take one scourge and create multiple scourges, many of which are worse than the scourge that you're trying to legislate and control by the police. No doubt. People don't go out and blow up a plane full of Supreme Court justices, which they did in Colombia, just out of meanness. They do it for the money. And so having made the profit motive so great that every time we round up some drug kingpin, there's 100 more waiting to take his place. I mean, let's face it, you can make $20, $30 a day picking coffee in Costa Rica, or you can make $50,000 a day picking marijuana or coca. Which would you rather do? Ask the average peasant and see what they have to say. So the whole point is this. I will concede that every negative thing they have ever said about any drug is absolutely positively true. They still ought to be legalized and regulated through the medical system as opposed to the criminal system, because that gets rid of all of the secondary scourges like graft and bribery. Look at the police. They say they can look around and see quite clearly there's nothing I can do about the drug scourge. It's been around for decades, and all it does is get worse and cheaper. So I have a choice. I can drive myself insane working 14 hours a day trying to do something about it, or I can benefit from it on the premise that nobody's going to do anything about it as far as I'm concerned, and I can use another $200,000-300,000 a year in my pocket.
Look at what happened when they got rid of the prohibition of alcohol. I mean,
It's exactly the same thing I was thinking. If we could just be talking about prohibition and make it word for word the same argument.
Well, it did leave us with an organized, well-heeled criminal underclass called the mafia.
And then some of them became our elites.
Yeah, and the power and money that they had or have, I think, is nothing compared to what the drug cartels have and the amount of corruption that they generate through their activities. So we not only didn't learn the lessons of prohibition, we've made things far worse with these prohibitions than they ever were during the 20s and 30s.
we've spent a fortune on the war on drugs. We've spent a fortune putting people in prison.
Drugs won, okay?
I still don't know who's going to hold up the white flag when we win that war.
There is a place where where that has happened, and it's working out for them, and it's been working out for years and years, and that's Portugal.
Portugal, yeah.
The Portugal experiment, and I don't have
Switzerland not far behind them, same
yeah,
ideas.
I do not understand why we don't go look at that, take a close look, and use it or improve it.
John Ehrlichman told us why. When Richard Nixon made drugs public enemy number one, he knew that they ought to be treated. His own research showed that they ought to be treated.
No, I meant I don't know a good reason.
Well,
that is a reason.
And the reason was that they could now control the hippies and the blacks and the
Counterculture.
anti-war
Exactly.
demonstrators. And, as I say, you couldn't arrest Stokely Carmichael because he said white people were devils, but you could put him in jail for 20 years if you showed up with a little white powder at your next encounter.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason that they still
Religion
don't
and
want to
drugs
legalize
control.
it's
It
just
just
one
gives-
more way to keep their hand firmly wrapped around your throat.
Gives those people control, religion and drugs.
You're listening to Atheist Forum on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Our guest tonight is Joe Redner. And if you'd like to weigh in, 441-3000 makes you part of the program. And you can tell Joe just exactly what you think, like or dislike. Shortly we're going to take a little break, not right now.
Can I read you something else this judge said?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What happened? She says, nothing in the amendment authorizes the Department of Health or any other part of Florida's government to ignore the rights of qualifying patients to access the medical marijuana treatment to which they are entitled under the Florida Constitution, or to exclude any method by which qualifying patients may take their medicine, the judge wrote.
That sounds sort of clear.
I kind of like her. I kind of like her a lot.
Joe, put on the cans. We got a caller. Somebody wants to tell you where to get off. Here on the Tan Talk Network,
got
Atheist Forum. Hello, caller.
Yes, I'd like to tell you where to get on.
Okay. It's your
Anyway,
dime.
I was thinking that getting back briefly to the subject of religion and how it relates to all this, it seems to me that the traditional churches have had a very considerable emphasis on the redemptive power of suffering. And they're not really very much into, Mother Teresa being one example, but they're not very much into relieving material human suffering, because they think it has the ability to.
It's what they traffic in.
Yes, it's the more you suffer, the greater your chances of making it through the pearly gates.
I guess that's why slavery was so popular, right?
Right.
You spend your whole life toiling and labor for the benefit of somebody else.
Yeah, because you may go someplace after you die.
Remember, it's the more you suffer, not the more I suffer.
Well, that's why suicide is a mortal sin too, right? You can't ease your own suffering either, apparently.
Yeah, marijuana, it seems to me, would is an especially exemplary drug in terms of the fact that it is that it does have a positive social benefit for the relief of pain and suffering for those who have different kinds of conditions, and this is the principal reason why we ought to promote that as much as we can, but also to look for and conduct research into other methods of relieving genuine pain. I mean, the whole issue of what do they call it?
5 seconds.
The opioid?
Yeah, sorry.
Oh.
I can't remember the name of the thing I'm talking about here, but doing it for pleasure, in other words.
Recreational.
Is really beside the
Gratification.
recreational use. Yeah, that's really kind of beside the point. The question is, what can we do to genuinely confer a benefit to humanity?
There you go. That's what drives me.
Yeah.
Okay, keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking in. Let's take a few moments to let you, our listeners, know about Atheists of Florida, which is the organization that puts this program on, and then we'll be back to continue with Joe Redner here on the Tan Talk Radio Network. Atheists of Florida is a nonprofit membership organization founded in 1992. For over 25 years, Atheists of Florida has brought atheists together to address state-church separation issues, provide legal assistance in cases of religious discrimination in employment or educational institutions, help atheists meet others who want to live their lives free of religion, and produce the Atheist Forum. For membership information, visit our website at atheistofflorida.com, where you'll find our newsletters, annual reports, statement of purpose, and information about meetings and events. That's atheistofflorida.com. 441-3000 if you'd like to join us here on the Atheist Forum. We're back on, Joe. Put a lid on it for a moment if you don't mind, and we're going to toss it over to Joe. That's Joe, that's Tracy, I'm Ed, and get our quote of the evening.
All right. Tonight's quote is from the Bard of Baltimore, one of my favorites, H.L. Mencken, and he says that deep within the heart of every evangelist lies the wreck of a used car salesman. And considering the evangelists, the kind of press they've been getting lately with their MAGA in the White House, that's an appropriate quote.
I like that mistake you made.
Joe Redner, our guest in the studio. If you'd like to talk with him or us, 441-3000. Joe, 2 questions. Number one, you're a resident of Hillsborough County. Why did you need to file this in Leon County? And the second one is, did you pay for it?
Wow.
And who's going to recover your fees for winning?
Well, that's good. You know, that first question, that's a good question. Most people wouldn't realize that it should have been filed here in Hillsborough County. I actually went to Hillsborough County, and I went into Hillsborough County, and the case, any case against a state agency is supposed to be brought at the home of the state agency, which would be in Tallahassee.
Right.
But there is an exception to that, and it's called the sword wielder's exception. If I'm asking for injunction against something that's going to be brought against me here. Let me give you an example. If I grow the marijuana here and they come and arrest me, I would have to defend myself in this jurisdiction in Hillsborough County. That is supposed to give me the exception to do it here and not in Tallahassee.
Yeah.
So I get a judge named Elizabeth Rice, right? What a piece of work this lady is. She's as bad as the judge in Tallahassee is good. That's right. She wouldn't hear it. She didn't want to hear it. She said, I thought this was for companies to be able to sell marijuana to people.
Like they're doing out
Big
in
companies.
Colorado and stuff.
Yeah, that's what I thought this was for. What kind of nut is she? So anyway, I was glad she exposed herself like that, because if she hadn't exposed herself, she might have had my case and I couldn't have won. It has still been going on. People in Florida still would be suffering. And the case would go on and on and on, because she would never find anything. She would not recognize the emergency. She wouldn't do anything. So it went to Tallahassee, got a good judge. She did me a favor, although she didn't want to.
Well, now, when you talk, Joe, about women exposing themselves, the audience might have a little bit different concept of what we're talking about here, but I kind of get it.
It just happened to be. I've met judges Most of the female judges that I've run into are really good judges.
Yeah.
I am not saying anything against female judges. They've been really good to me. But this one,
Wow.
what a conservative.
I'm guessing you like Ginsburg, too, huh?
Yeah, I love Ginsburg.
Tracy, you have something.
I don't like her. I love her.
Well, I think this is an extremely important case for all Florida citizens because, as I understand it, to even get registered as someone who can use medical marijuana, that'll run you $500 or $600, and then if you have to purchase marijuana from a medical marijuana facility, it's extremely expensive, and the average person would have a very difficult time in buying it.
What it cost me the last time I went to a dispensary was $500.
Yeah,
$500. How do people afford that?
That's real money.
that is real money.
So, and I go 4 times a year. That's $2,000 a year. What the hell are people doing?
So being able to grow your own marijuana is a huge savings.
And you can do anything that the companies that are making this oil and everything, you can do at home for pennies.
Wow.
Pennies.
Make your own edible, yeah.
And you know what went into it, which is the more important thing. For all you know, half of those oils are 40 weight.
I don't know, and I don't trust them either. Although True Leaf is okay. I kind of like True Leaf, but also we're going for a license too. I'm going to shut down the whole state. They're not going to issue any more licenses. I'm going to shut them down. I'm not going to let them issue licenses unconstitutionally.
Oh, for dispensaries?
Yeah. For MMTC centers. The amendment says MMT centers, TC centers, medical marijuana treatment centers do everything. They grow, process everything. It's not like alcohol. You have one manufacturing, one distributing, and one. This amendment says one entity can do all of it. So,
Monopoly type thing.
well, no, it's okay. If it's like a brewery, anybody wants to open a brewery, you just apply for a license. They make sure you're doing it right. If you're doing it right, you get to be in business. I can open 100 breweries. There's no cap on breweries.
What about liquor stores? That's a lottery system.
Well, they have that. No, bars is a lottery system now. Yeah. But
those used to be
but
liquor
breweries.
license was
I could
gold in one day.
I can open as many breweries as I want. Yeah, they're $200,000. In Pinellas County, not that in Hillsborough County. But what was I saying?
You could open as many breweries.
Breweries as I want to. Yeah. So why can't I open a marijuana center where you and grow and sell marijuana? I don't understand it. So I registered with the state. They're supposed to take registrations. They've given a few people licenses. They're cartels. They've got a monopoly. Mm-hmm. It's friends of the people in office in the state. They all are connected. And it's just so anyway, I'm gonna shut the whole process down of how you get a license and make them distribute the licenses the way they're supposed to be distributed, because the way they're doing it, they're not growing enough product. They're not diversifying enough to get the different products to the patient. And there's patients that aren't getting their medicine because they will not issue enough licenses and won't do it the way Republicans claim the way they want it done, free enterprise. They have totally taken the free enterprise out of it and given it to their buddies.
Yeah, they don't want to interfere with the private lives of the average citizen. Again, a recurring theme on this show is the word Republican. The H is silent, as in hypocrite.
I got a problem with Republicans. I mean, I just really have a problem with them.
I think some of them are still falling victim to the alternative facts that were put out 100 years ago with reefer madness. I don't think they've ever gotten over that.
I've campaigned with these people. I've campaigned 9 times. I've campaigned with these people. They're liars and cheaters and thieves. Every friggin' one of them. They're looking right in the eye, and they look at the public out there, and they tell you what they're going to do to help education. And they've been saying that for 20 friggin' years. And where's education going? Down the hill? But they'll tell you when they're campaigning, whoa, how they're going to do education, and they're going to put money in it. And and they're talking about Scott having put more money in education than any other state. I mean, than we have it in Florida. Yeah, more than anybody else, but not enough to keep us up to the standards of other states.
We rank 49th per capita in student spending.
How can you brag about that?
Yeah, exactly.
What an accomplishment.
And they do it. I heard a guy on Channel 9 bragging about it today. That guy Putnam. He's bragging about education. Please, give me a break.
Well, Joe, what is your perception of the resistance to marijuana now that we're in the 21st century and we've started to legalize things that we thought we might never see in our lifetimes, like same-sex marriage? Is it economic, or is it just the fear of conservatives that, this is the way it's always been, we need to keep it this way, reefer madness influence, or what?
I don't think they can demonize with the advent of the internet. I don't think they can take a group of people and demonize them and make them inhumane anymore, because that's what Trump does. That's what Hitler did. He's doing it to the Muslims. He did it to the Jews. It's the same damn shit. Yeah. You dehumanize a whole race of people, and then you get the country to exterminate. You make them all. You make them hate them.
But here's the good
they're
thing.
out there doing that now. They're walking around this country with their guns, wanting to kill Muslims, wanting to kill brown people. They want to kill. They're killers.
But here's the good thing when it comes to marijuana. Now you have the baby boomers who were the hippies are, at retirement age now, and they experience marijuana. They know it's not what people made it out to be, know. And so they're the ones that are voting in constitutional amendments like in our state.
Yeah, more and more people who are not interested in smoking marijuana are still indifferent to the idea that other people ought to smoke it, or in favor of it because they don't like getting beat up on street corners.
Well, I never wanted to marry a man or have sex with him, but I don't have a problem with my neighbor. Do men get married?
There's one thing about marijuana.
None of my damn business.
If you have a bad reaction on marijuana, you don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
Alcohol, you keep drinking. You hit a car, let me give me another drink. Let me have another drink. You have a bad experience on marijuana, you don't. You don't do it anymore. I know. My son had a bad experience on marijuana. He wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Wow.
Well, because you're not addicted to it, number one.
Well, it doesn't addict you, right?
You're just not
I think it has
to
some kind of a mental,
emotional, maybe.
Because it's so soothing that it's like drinking a glass of hot chocolate at night.
It's a boredom killer too.
So how does it affect one driving? We know that alcohol is generally dangerous for drivers, but what about marijuana? Does it have is the same effect?
It depends on your experience with marijuana.
Yeah,
if you're experiencing marijuana, if you're experienced, you can drive. It's not a problem.
Yeah, they've just done
maybe
some tests.
less accidents.
They just released some tests, studies where people who were familiar with it gave up little or nothing. In fact, in some cases, their motor skills improved. For people who were just neophytes, they did suffer some confusion and loss of coordination and reaction time, but it doesn't take long to get over that.
So here's how they did it. They took some school kids that were old enough to drive, that had never smoked marijuana in their life. They put them on this real tight course with all these things on it. They stick a joint, they smoke the joint, they go out there and they run over some cones. I wouldn't run over any of those cones.
I'd be perfectly
here's
happy
one thing
to
about
fly
marijuana.
With if the pilot was smoking pot, I'd be happy to fly with it.
If marijuana debilitates you, why can't they develop a test? A roadside test to test you. They can't.
They have one. I'm going to tell you what that test is right now. They pull you over. They suspect you of being high on marijuana. They tell you a very bad joke. If you laugh,
There you go. I'm laughing. Have I been smoking?
They offer you a Twinkie.
Yeah, but anyway, that's a good joke, and we're all laughing. But they what was I going to say?
Oh, we were talking about
they
trying
can't.
to-
Yeah, they can't. They don't. You can touch your nose. You can walk a straight line. You can do all those things. So they can't devise a roadside test.
Oh, okay. I follow you.
I had a friend who, this is 20 years ago, but he
So you're not debilitated. If they can't tell you're debilitated, and look at you, test you, and they can't tell you're debilitated,
we got a caller.
how can you be debilitated?
Maybe the caller can tell us. You're on the Atheist Forum. Thanks for checking in.
You're welcome. I didn't get to see all of your program, and I'm wondering if you have discussed the medical efficacy of medicinal extracts from marijuana
Can you?
to the joints themselves.
Can you talk about it?
No, that's my question for you.
Oh.
Well, we did talk about that earlier.
Oh, if
What?
extracts are really beneficial.
Yeah, well, I haven't brought any studies or anything with me, but, I could get on my phone right now and scroll down to find probably 5 or 6 different problems and sicknesses that marijuana, the extracts, and all that stuff treats and helps.
Well, and one benefit of using extracts and edibles is that you're not breathing in the smoke into your lungs as well, which a lot of
Right.
people are saying that's very bad for you. But so that's one way of partaking and intaking marijuana without that bad smoke effect.
I used it personally. I'm a stage 4 lung cancer survivor. I used it for the radiation and the chemo, mostly the chemo, to relax me and let me get through that.
For some people, it's a big pain reliever. And there's been many different illnesses that they have found medicinal uses for marijuana.
COPD
Nausea.
is one. I mean, it almost helps everything.
Yeah, the nausea treatment, if you're going through chemotherapy, one of the main reasons for cannabis is to treat nausea.
And it
Because
helps
if you take
your
nausea
appetite.
pills, you have to take them on a regular basis. You can't take them when you get nauseous. Whereas the cannabis, if you have nausea, the relief is on demand. So it's a big difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wish I had brought some more studies with me so I could give them to you, but it's
It's hard to find anything.
no, it's all over the internet. You can go on the internet, medical marijuana, go to normal, some other organizations, and you'll find hundreds.
Yeah.
Well, now, what about the fees to pursue this? I mean, you're going to go farther. You've got to
Well,
lay this
we-
jack on the table.
I do. You can't get attorney fees in Florida, but you can get costs. I'm already up to $37,000 in costs they owe me. That's for depositions, expert witnesses, travel back and forth, all Tallahassee. Well, that judge made me go to Tallahassee. That cost the money.
Sure.
Oh, that's everything except your attorney's fees.
Everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you said you can't recover that. I mean, if
I can recover the
if
costs, not the attorney fees.
Okay, so if the appeal fails, you win. You can keep moving ahead with this in anticipation that the state will compensate you for your fees.
They will.
Not your legal fees, but all your costs.
Costs.
right?
They will. They
That's
have to.
great. Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
that they don't have a choice. The court will tell them to do it.
Yes. Which they don't care how much it costs because it's not their
Not
money
their
they're
money.
spending, right?
No, right.
Go ahead, Tracy.
No, I was going to say, how much have you incurred in legal fees that you cannot?
He
I'm not
just
gonna
said
be-
that.
I'm sorry, I didn't
It's up
hear the
about
amount.
that was
That was
the
that
cost.
was that was cost, not
Yeah.
legal
Oh,
fees.
No, I'm up about around 100,000.
So 100,000 plus
That's what
37
it would
in
cost
cost.
somebody
Okay.
if they want. If I let me tell you this, I could get people to ship me marijuana from Colorado if I wanted. The mail service is the biggest criminal enterprise, distributor, criminal enterprise in the state of Florida. UPS, the post office, they don't know it, but they are. because that's what I did when I was sick, and they didn't have the amendment, and I was thing. That's what I did. I had it shipped from Colorado. It's break the law or die.
Yeah,
that's the alternative.
Tough
break
decision.
the breaking law or die.
Yeah.
So I cooked my own. So all these people. So I didn't do it for the money. I didn't do it for me. I did it so everybody in the state of Florida that can't afford marijuana can grow it for themselves and take the benefit of the medicine. That's what I did it for.
I'm really hoping that the medical marijuana, like in other states, is a stepping stone to full legalization. I really hope it is.
It is.
Really
It can't
do.
go. It's like the gay
can't go
issue that you were
another way.
talking about, Ed. It'll. It's going that way. It's starting to pick up steam. It's steamrolling.
More and more states.
One of the stations that was interviewing me asked me about the federal, because it's still against the law federally.
Yes.
It's a Schedule 1 drug federally. And I said, let me tell you something. 71% of the voters of Florida voted for that. That means if they're going to try me in a trial, there's going to be 6 people up there that are going to be trying me. I guarantee you 2 or 3 of those people have somebody in their family that's using marijuana for health purposes. If they want to try and convict me of a crime, they're going to have to take me to a trial, and we're going to see if they can get a friggin' conviction.
And here's the insane thing, Joe. You just mentioned on a federal level, these are considered to be Schedule 1 drugs. It's insane because
That is.
Schedule 1 means there's no medicinal
Medical
purpose
benefit.
whatsoever. And we know
That's
for
a
a fact
lie.
that is a full-out lie.
That's a full-out lie.
And you've got Jeff Sessions that is trying to
The weasel.
Exactly. He's trying to keep that up.
The federal government has been willing to repeat that lie for the last 80 years or so, just to give you an idea of what kind of verisimilitude we sometimes get from our leaders and mentors and role models.
You got nothing to say, Ed?
I hate to close out the show without expanding on the
Do that. I like that. I saw that.
the conservative movement in this country, because that's the way I see it. The conservatives have an inert fear of any kind of change. Even if we're doing things wrong, it's the way we've been doing it. We got to keep doing it that way because we're so afraid of change. I don't know why. There's nothing more consistent in life than change.
Well, that's how they evolve. The people that think like that evolved for. They think that way, and it's for protection.
Yeah.
But they have it out. They can't think out of it.
Well, I know-
Most of us have that, but we can think our way and reason our way out of it now. But a lot of people can't do that.
You would think with conservatives that the word progressive is a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
Well, they won't think, that requires some effort. So if things just stay the same, then I don't have to think about it.
That's right.
So we looked at Doonesbury today, and the pastor is standing up at his, what do you call it? Okay, thank you. You have to forgive me.
Tell you ain't
never
been to
had to
church.
be out. One final announcement from the Board of Elders, he says to his flock. There's been some confusion among evangelicals as to what currently constitutes sin in the eyes of the church. So, to clarify, we now condone the following conduct: lewdness, vulgarity, profanity, adultery, and sexual assault. Exemptions to Christian values also include greed, bullying, conspiring, boasting, lying, cheating, sloth, envy, wrath, gluttony, and pride, others to be announced.
So
Lastly, we will be willing to overlook biblical illiteracy, church non-attendance, and no credible sign of faith. And as they're leaving, shaking hands with the pastor on the way out, the first guy says, loving the lowered bar, pastor. And the other guy says, me too. I feel like a freaking saint now. but it just goes to show what we always say every week on this program. If you're going to be a conservative, one must first master the art of
Hypocrisy.
Yes. And, to me, what's the difference between your issue? If this had just come on the table today and we didn't have this history going back to the film
Reefer Madness.
which was clearly a propaganda film, would we look at marijuana as something that was an endangerment to our health, or the culture, or morality?
When it comes to pot movies, High School Confidential with Russ Tamblyn and Mamie Van Doren is even worse because it has the aura of believability, whereas Reefer Madness is clearly just somebody's fantasy about dope and what they wish it was like, so they would be taking it.
And of course, Nixon really wanted to hammer down on it because he wanted those damn hippies in jail, and that was his avenue. So many of them used it, right?
Yeah, he thought they were out there, the ones that were protesting the Vietnam War, and he wanted to shut them down.
Yes, he did.
And that was his vehicle for doing it.
Did you
They were
ever
enemy
read,
number one for him.
Did you read what Muhammad Ali said? I got that on there, but I'm not going to look for it. He ain't going over there. He said, none of those people over there.
Called me the N-word.
Yeah, called me a nigger.
Better yet, he said, I got nothing against them Kong.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's now you said something about how we can. You alluded earlier to how we can really start to see some change on a federal level, but we certainly aren't going to under the current administration and the Goombas that are running it. So we need a radical change. Maybe some of the young voters that are registering are going to show up at the polls, and we're going to see a radical change because things have been so
Well,
bad.
they're saying now that the pot issue appeals to the younger voters, and that it's a wedge issue that can attract them, bring them to the polls for the midterm elections, which is another thorn in the side of the Republicans.
Yeah.
You know, when they were considering this, putting this amendment on the ballot, and people were considering about voting for it, a lot of people were talking to me and saying, well, if we allow medical marijuana, then people are going to just take it recreationally. And my response to them was, so what?
Yeah.
So what's your point? Yeah.
So, since we're talking about cannabinoids, the reason why cannabinoids appear to cure so many illnesses is because prior to Prohibition, they were part of the human food chain. Dairy cows ate feral hemp, which was rich in CBD, and passed the CBD to humans through their milk. Pigs, chickens, and other livestock were also fed hemp, and the CBDs were in their meat and eggs. Beginning in 1937, the government eradicated all forms of feral and cultivated hemp, thus eliminating CBD from the human diet, of which it had been part of since prehistoric times. 80 years of human suffering and misery, untold millions of needless deaths, all caused by prohibitionists who supported outlawing hemp for one reason and one reason only, because they were told to. Americans were duped by their government the past 80 years.
That's never happened before, has it?
Hear, hear.
Joe Redner, thanks for joining us tonight here on the Atheist Forum. You're always a great
Joe,
guest.
Tracy,
and,
Ed, I'm so glad to be here.
Well, we'd love to have you back again soon and wish you well in all your endeavors, especially the one you're working on. And for those of you listening, you can hear our program on Talk.AOF.NGO if you want to hear it from the beginning, our archived programs. And I hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of the Forum. Now, along with Joe Reinhardt, Tracy Thomas, I'm Ed Golly, reminding you if the story seems a little too implausible to be true, don't believe it just because somebody wrote it down.
Make them prove it.
Yeah. You have been listening to the Atheist Forum. To learn more about Atheists of Florida, visit our website at atheistofflorida.com. Continue the discussion on our website, talk.aof.ngo. Join us again next Sunday for another edition of the Atheist Forum here on Tan Talk 1340.